Estate. Today, I'm your host, Leroy Warden, and I'm here with Chris Bottriell of Alberta Property Inspection. Welcome, Chris.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you. So, Chris, we're here to help homeowners with home maintenance tips, and I believe we will have a chat about the items around the home that a homeowner should be looking at in terms of home maintenance. In general, why would you say a homeowner should be maintaining their home?
I think, first of all, if you do maintenance to your home, it will keep the value of the property. But also with a lot of the weather that we're getting now with the big storms in the summertime, if you're not prepared, if you're not doing your regular maintenance, there's a good chance that you're going to have leakage, possibly through the roof, basically maybe coming through the basement.
I see. Okay. Now, what should a homeowner check? There's the electrical outlets on the outside. They call them the GFIs.
So what I would do is probably one of the very first things I would do in the spring, because you're going to be using power tools, possibly hedge trimmers or whatever to do your maintenance. Check the ground fault circuit interrupters. They're the outlet on the outside of the home that has a test and a reset button.
Yes.
There's usually one at the front or the back, but they're connected together. Probably the best way for a homeowner to check it is to get like a hair dryer, a power drill, a light, plug it in, and then hit the test button on the receptacle. And when you hit that test button, that light should go out, or the hair dryer should go out. And if that in fact happens, then yours is working perfectly and you're good to go. If it doesn't do that, then you'll have to replace the GFI. They're a very important safety device in the home. I definitely would recommend that you have an electrician come out and replace the one that's faulty.
Awesome. Now, what needs to be done to the east troughs, the downspouts, and the leaders?
Okay, so what happened in the fall is we had quite an early winter. It caught a lot of people by surprise. So a lot of the leaves that you should have been cleaning out in the fall, I'm finding, are sitting in east troughs here in the spring. So what you got to do is to get up. You can hose out your east troughs. You can take a little scoop. Some people take the top off a Javex bottle and scoop out the leaves. Get them running nice and clean. Mm-hmm. The downspouts, they usually are pretty good condition, but the problem is a lot of people have the leaders that actually flip up against the wall. Those leaders are supposed to always be in the down position.
Right.
A lot of people leave them up. The only time that you put your leaders up is when you're cutting the grass or doing lawn maintenance. And you leave them down all the time, and they should be down even through the winter time. So make sure that those leaders are down onto the ground. They should be at least 4 feet away from the foundation if possible, although some of the newer homes now are built so close together you can't get that 4 feet. So go as far as you can, but remember, you must be back at least 5 inches from the property line. The city of Edmonton can actually fine you if you're dumping water onto your neighbor's property. But make sure that those leaders and downspouts and east troughs are clean and working fine, because when we get these downpours in the spring, you want to make sure that water is getting away from the house.
Right, so talking about water around the house, grading is a major issue. So what should a homeowner do regarding grading now that the snow is gone?
Well, you might have some low areas, some sinkholes around your foundation after the snow is gone. City of Edmonton really wants 10% grade away from the home. 10% grade would be if you were to stand back from your foundation about 8 feet, draw a line level to your house and go up 10 inches, that would give you about a 10% slope. Try to do that. And you might have to get some soil and fill in the areas. A good clay soil is what they recommend, but even just any soil at this time of year to get that grade built up so any water drains away from the property. There should also be a swale between you and your neighbor on both sides of the house as well, and that's where you want the water to drain. Water should then drain out to your front street.
Right, so you're saying standing back 8 feet, but
yes.
I'm in my side yard, Chris.
Yeah.
I don't have 8 feet, I got...
Well, divide it in half and go back 4 feet and go 5 inches.
And go 5 inches.
And actually, if you go into the City of Edmonton website on lot grading, it's a very good website. They show you how to build an actual gauge to do that. So okay. You can do that too.
Okay. So window wells. So we have the window wells around the windows. How do window wells work, and how do I maintain my window well?
Well, let's talk a little about what a window well is, because people need to understand how they work exactly. Everybody knows they're the U-shaped device that sit around the windows, basically on bungalows and 2 stories, and sometimes bi-levels as well, but not as important on a bi-level. And what they do is, the rule is if your window comes within 6 inches of grade level, you should have a window well. The window well basically allows you to raise the grade around the window without actually covering the window itself, and it also allows for egress out of the window in the basement if there's a bedroom. So how a window well works is that inside the window well, there should be at least 12 inches of a granular stone. And if your house is built after about 1980, there will be a drain tile that goes from the window well all the way down to the weeping tile. So when the water lands in the window well, the water has to drain. If it can't drain properly, the water will fill up in the window well, work its way underneath your window, and run down into the basement. Now, what I'm finding at this time of year is that the window wells are all full of leaves, and leaves are the perfect thing to stop water from draining. So you got to grab those leaves, just use your hand and get some gloves and just get those all out and make sure that you have the proper stone. And by the way, you are supposed to use a 3/4 inch wash stone. What I'm finding is a lot of people are using bark, shale, pea gravel. The problem with bark and shale is that that stuff crumbles over time. And if that crumbles in your window well, it will plug up your weeping tile and you could end up with a major problem down the road. Right. Okay, so window wells are probably the one thing that I find very poorly done, sometimes even by the builders, but certainly very poorly maintained as well.
Right, okay. So Chris, I'm there standing back from my house. We've got the shingles, we've got metal up there for roofs, we have clay. So what maintenance or check should I do as a homeowner for my roof cover? And now that the snow is gone, what do I do from a maintenance perspective?
Well, first of all, if you're certainly not comfortable about getting on the roof, I would hire a professional to go up and do a check on the roof in the spring. However, what you could do as a homeowner is a good set of binoculars, and that's what we use even as home inspectors, and just scan the roof and look for any missing tiles, missing shingles, any lifting flashings. Make sure you get your debris off the roof. I just did a house the other day. The whole roof was covered in branches that came off a tree over the winter time. And that's the kind of stuff that will back up the water on your roof and cause leakage. So make sure that you scan the roof at least with binoculars. If you see missing shingles or lifting flashings, then I would probably suggest that you get a roofing company out to just make those minor repairs. I think that would probably be the best thing a homeowner can really do.
Awesome. So types of hose bibs. What are they, and how do you get them up and running for the spring?
Okay, so there's two different kinds of hose bibs. One's called a frost-free, and the other one is just the standard unit that we've been using for many years. Up until about 1990, most of the homes had the old style hose bibs that have to be winterized in the fall. And it's very, very important that you winterize those hose bibs. Now, if you didn't winterize your old style hose bib in the fall, you will know by now if there's a problem because you would have had water leaking into the basement. So you're probably okay by now. You probably made it through the winter if that's okay. The next one is called a frost-free hose bib, and it's about 1 foot long, and it actually does not need to be winterized. All you do is turn it off in the fall, and it self-drains, okay? But you must remove your garden hose from the hose bib in the fall from a frost-free hose bib. Now, if you did not remove that hose bib from the frost-free hose bib, then my suggestion to you is you better check it because it could be split on the inside and you won't know that it's leaking until the day you open it. So what a lot of people will do is undo the 2 screws on the outside of the hose bib, pull it out and check to make sure that the shaft is not bulging at the end where the pipe connects to, the water line connects to. If it's bulging, you're going to have to replace that hose bib and you can slide it right back in and put your 2 screws. If you can't pull it out, then you have to go into the basement and look up into the rim joist area and try to see the hose bib and again take an inspection on it. You may even want to have someone open the hose bib on the outside while you're looking at it because as soon as you open it, if there's a split in it, you'll see the water gushing down. And the problem is with a lot of people in the spring is that when they didn't winterize their hose bibs properly or didn't remove the garden hose from a frost-free, they're out there watering the garden in April, and what they're doing at the same time is they're flooding their basement, and they won't know until they come into the basement, and the whole floor is going to be wet, and that's because of improper maintenance of the hose bib. So what a lot of people do now is they actually convert the old style hose bibs into the new style frost-free hose bibs, and like I say, just make sure that you remove your garden hose every fall. Very, very important.
That's awesome. That's awesome information. Now, sump pumps. What's a sump pump discharge and what types are there and how do I set it up so that it's operating properly in the spring?
So there's 3 kinds, basically there's 3 different types of discharges on a sump. You either have it going into your sanitary sewer, you either have it discharging onto the lawn, or you have it going into a storm sewer. And you can pretty well tell The sanitary sewer one, you have to have a permit to actually run water into a sanitary line. So most people have it either the two, which is going over the surface, or into the storm sewer. So if you look on the outside of your house, usually on the side wall, you have a black pipe that comes out, an ABS pipe that goes down 90 degrees into the ground. If there's a nice big 4-inch clean out with a pipe that goes extends down into the ground, that will mean that your sump is discharging into a storm drain. And you don't really have to worry too much about the discharge, because that water is going into the storm drain, under the ground, and out to a city main. You don't have to worry hardly at all with that. However, around probably prior to about 2000 and back into about 1988, the city was actually just bringing the sump discharges out to the wall and just dumping the water out onto the grass. Now, the problem with that is that if you don't have an extension or a splash pad, and if you don't extend so that you don't get the water away far enough from the house, the water could actually come back to the weeping tile, and you end up with a cycle of the water just going in and out of the house all the time down into the basement. So what you need to do, if you've got one that discharges onto the surface, they want the pipe to come out on about a 33-degree angle. The pipe should come down to a splash pad. So a splash pad is about a concrete or plastic pad that sits underneath the sump discharge and should have about a 5% slope, so the water drains out to the property line. And that's all they want pretty well most of the year. If you decide that you want to add a flex hose to it, you can, and you can run that out to a tree if you're trying to water a tree, or you can run it out to the back alley or whatever. But just remember that when fall comes, you must remove that flex hose, because if that flex hose freezes in the wintertime, you're going to end up with a flooded basement. Basically, your sump pump's not going to be able to discharge.
Okay, all right. And so from sump pump to fresh air intake, where is that located, and how do I as a homeowner maintain?
Okay, the fresh air intake is hugely important, and it has a lot to do with the air quality in the home. The air that you breathe in the home is coming in through that fresh air intake. I would say that 90% of the fresh air intakes that I inspect during a home inspection are plugged. And we get that poplar fluff in Edmonton usually in the end of April or May, and what's happening is that when the furnace is operating, the fluff is getting caught on the screen, on the furnace intake, and it's basically plugging up any hope of having any air coming into the home. Now, where are they located? They're located on the side of the house. Well, not always on the side of the house. They can be on the rear, and in some homes they're actually under the deck, which makes them really hard to operate. But they're like a metal, or really hard to clean. They're basically a metal boot. Looks almost like a dryer vent on the outside. There's usually two of them. One's for combustion air and one is for makeup air. And what you need to do is just look. You'll be able to tell. There will be a mesh or a screen or a sieve on that vent boot. And what you need to do is just pick off that lint, maybe get a little shop vac in there. Some people put tape around their hand and just put it like that and just pull it off like you would maybe lint off of clothing. And get that working properly, get it clean, make sure the air can flow into the home. So usually located about 2 or 3 feet off the ground. They're usually metal, and they're usually located on the sides, but like sometimes they will be underneath the deck at the back. And if that's the case, you will have to get underneath the deck and go over and clean them. They should be cleaned at least once a year, and you will definitely improve the air quality in your home. Not only do you get poor air quality, but you'll find more moisture in your home. Your windows will be fogging up all the time. You'll get more condensation around your windows. So definitely probably the number one thing everybody should be doing in the spring, cleaning those fresh air intakes.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot for homeowners to do from a maintenance standpoint. So we now have the siding, the trim, the soffits, the fascia. What's maintenance is required for those
Well,
items?
same thing. Basically, what I would just do as a spring maintenance is just take a garden hose and just wash down all the siding, the soffit, and the fascia. Try not to send too much water into the soffit. Usually you start from the bottom and you work up just to try to get the dust and debris off of the siding. I think is probably all I would do at this point in time. You can get a cleaner from the hardware store that you can add to your hose as you spray it. That might help just a little bit. But unless you want to get up there with a mop or like a brush that you might wash your car with, I would probably just say hose it down is really all you really need to do. Just get those cobwebs off, get all the needles, the leaves, and everything that might have been left over from the fall, I think, or from the winter. I think that's all I would do at this point in time.
Well, you know, us guys, I'm telling you, I like buying my toys myself. Pressure washers. So grabbing a pressure washer, standing back, feeling like a He-Man. Spraying that sucker down. What are your thoughts?
Well, typically not recommended for siding. Pressure washer is something I'd avoid. I think just an ordinary spray from a garden hose would be adequate. You could probably do more damage sometimes by using a pressure hose, a pressure washer. So I would probably refrain from the pressure washer.
All right. So what maintenance is required for the garage overhead door? Is there a spring checkup that should be done?
Yes, there is a spring checkup that should be done, definitely, and it's for safety. Remember that the garage door is one of the most dangerous items in the house. So the test that I would do, basically what you want to make sure is that there's 2 safety devices on any door mechanism that's been installed since 1994. Before 94, there was only 1 brake, but now we have 2. So what you need to do is get a 2x4, lay it down on the concrete pad below the garage door, hit the button to close the door, and as the door comes down, when it hits that 2x4, it must come right back up. If it doesn't, then what you need to do is there's a screw on the side of the door opener that says sensitivity. You need to make your door operator more sensitive. And it's just a matter of turning the screw, and it'll tell you which direction to turn it. It says that right on the device. So that would be the first, that's called the reverse brake. The next safety item on a garage door opener is the electric sensors, or the photo sensors. So what you can do with that is you can just hit the door button to drop the door down. You can just put your foot in front of the beam or anything basically to just break that beam, and the door should stop immediately and return back up. And if both of those safety devices are working, you're good for the rest. You should be good for the rest of the rest of the day.
All right. And I guess that would be really true for people with little kids, right?
Very, very important.
Right?
Absolutely.
And even for their safety
Yes.
and security.
And actually remember too that those photoelectric cells should be only 6 inches above the ground or above the garage pad. And I sometimes see them way too high. And a lot of dogs and cats, whatever, they can actually walk right underneath them. So make sure that they're only 6 inches. That's usually manufacturer specifications on the photo
to protect
cells.
the animals as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. What should I do with tree branches that are close to my house?
Yeah, this time of year, probably what I would do is just cut back all the tree branches from the house. Like I said earlier, remove any from the roof or any that are hanging over your eaves troughs or whatever. But make sure you cut them back, because I've done lots of home inspections where I've actually seen ants, just like the army, where they just walk up the tree, they walk across the branches, walk right on top of your roof. And that's probably why you got a lot of ants maybe in your home, is because they actually come up the tree and they walk right into the home. So cut back the branches as much as you can. That was probably what I would do at this point, and try to cut them back from the roof as well. You may have to hire a professional to do some of that. And also your main service wires. If you're in an older home that has main service wires, you may want to hire a professional to cut back the trees from the service wires as well.
Right. Yeah, that could cause a little bit of
There was a fire years ago in Edmonton where there was a big storm and the trees were swinging, broke the service wire off, and actually the house started on fire.
Wow. What maintenance could be done to my driveway?
Okay, so what I would do for inspection on the driveway at this time of year is just to see if it has settled over the winter months. If you are getting quite a bit of settlement in it, where the settlement mostly occurs usually is where the driveway meets the pad. So if you do have quite a bit of settlement there, what you can do, I would wait for the frost to come out first just to see, and that should be pretty soon here. But what you can do is you can actually hire a foam jacker to come out, and he can actually bring your driveway back to meet the pad. So foam jacking is a procedure where we can raise concrete where we need to, and it's affordable, and that's one way to deal with concrete that way. The other things that I find is that there's usually a gap between your driveway and your garage pad, and you do not want a gap in that spot, because when the rain hits your garage door, the water will come down, run down through that gap, and start to wash out all the substrate underneath your driveway. Stone, sand could all get washed out, and that will that'll even cause more settlement in your driveway. So definitely seal that gap. What you can use is stuff called backer rod that's available at the hardware store. You can also use a polyurethane caulking as well. And normally what they do is they come with a buffalo board when it's actually built, but that buffalo board deteriorates after a few years, so you want to make sure that gap is filled. Next thing, if you have any cracks, you can seal them again with a polyurethane caulking. It doesn't look that nice, but that's one way to deal with it, because you don't want water to get underneath your driveway. That's basically what you're trying to do, is just to stop that. Another thing you can do too is if you're starting to get spalling on your driveway, and the spalling is when the surface starts to deteriorate a little bit, you can actually put an acrylic concrete sealer on top of your driveway. Basically, it's just a roll-on paint material. It's clear, it's transparent. You can do that, or you can use a glaze. And a concrete glaze is another coating that you can put on. The nice thing about if you use a concrete glaze is that it doesn't darken the color of the concrete. It still looks a little bit brighter. So a lot of people like to use the glaze over the acrylic sealer, but both are good products, help seal the driveway.
Should a professional handle checking your AC for those homes that have ACs, or are these checks something that a homeowner could do themselves?
Well, I would probably recommend a professional inspect your AC unit once a year. That's pretty well standard in the industry. However, if you're the type that wants to do it yourself, well, these are the following steps that I would probably do. The very first thing that you should do with your air conditioner unit when you want to get it up and running in the spring is take the cover off. If you operate your air conditioner compressor with the cover on it, you will ruin it right away. So make sure you remove the cover. The next thing I would do is remove any of the debris. And again, just like your furnace intake, you get that same kind of poplar fluff stuck on all the fins of the compressor unit on the outside. You can take a vacuum. Some people will actually take the lid off of the air conditioner with a hose, blow out from the inside all the way out, and try to remove that from the exterior. But anyways, get it clean. Make sure it's level. Air conditioners will work much better and last much longer if the compressor unit is level. So that's another thing to do. The other thing is that your refrigerant lines, one of your refrigerant line will have an insulation on it, and you've got to make sure that that's in good condition, because I've seen those deteriorate really badly, and that will affect the performance of the unit. So make sure that that's done on the outside. The next thing that you should do is maybe go down into the furnace, and there is a condensate tray in the furnace underneath the A coil, which is the unit that basically brings in the cooling, and make sure that the drain pipes are all clean. Make sure that the pipe that drains that condensate into your floor drain is in good condition and draining properly. The next thing I would do then is turn on the main breaker and let the unit heat up. You must let the unit heat up for 24 hours before you operate the air conditioner. So by turning on that main breaker, there is a heater heating the oil in the compressor unit, and they want 24 hours for that oil to get thin enough to flow, and so you don't do any damage to the unit. So those are certainly the things that I would do. Oh, the other thing that I would recommend is go into the basement. If you have only one air conditioner in your home, you should close all the heat registers in the basement. That's generally the rule of thumb with an air conditioner. The idea of doing that is it tends to move all the cold air to the second floor, and that way you'll have good cooling for the bedroom areas where you want it, but also that cold air is more dense and it will find its way down into the basement. If you don't close the ones in the basement, you're going to freeze downstairs, and you're not going to have the cooling up into the bedroom areas. The other thing that's very important with an air conditioner is that if you have a humidifier, and most homes do, there's a damper on that humidifier that must be turned into the closed position for the summertime. If you do not close that damper on the humidifier, your cold air is just going to circulate around the furnace all summer long, and you're not going to get that cold air to the second floor. So make sure you close that damper. And the damper will often say open or close, or it'll say summer and winter. So if it says summer, put it to summer. If it says open and close, you want it into the closed position.
The closed position. That's awesome. That's
Very
awesome.
important.
That's some awesome advice. So that would more or less take care of our exterior of our house. Is there anything else you could think of on the exterior that a homeowner should be paying attention to?
I think if you just do the general maintenance, just remember that we've got a lot of rain probably coming in April and May, and you want to be prepared for all the pooling water that might be around your house. The number one thing that we find at home inspections is grading of the lot is usually one of the biggest problems. Everybody wants a dry basement, so the number one thing that you can do is to keep that water drained away from the property. Good slope on your grading. Your downspouts and eaves troughs. Even if you have a crack in the foundation, if you're getting that water away from the house, they a lot of times won't leak. It's when you have a crack in the foundation, you have water dumping right beside it, and basically those are the reasons why a lot of people have water in their basement. And really, it's not really rocket science when you get water in your basement. It's usually something pretty obvious, like a crack and poor grading, poor downspouts and eaves troughs and stuff like that.
That's awesome. Well, Chris, I want to thank you for your information and your advice to our homeowners. This was excellent. I'm sure that a lot of people would find this invaluable. So thank you for coming out. Now, if people are trying to contact, or they had questions, or they wanted to get in touch with you, do you have a website?
Yes, you can go on to albertapropertyinspection.com, and I do have some blogs on some of the things that I've just talked about here today. And also on my Facebook page, I do have a video some information that's pretty very handy for people with furnaces in the wintertime. And I've got more coming all the time. So absolutely, yes. Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Again, Chris, thank you so much.
I see you, Leroy.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Any additional topics you'd like us to cover, leave it in the comments. Hit subscribe below and you'll receive our new releases. Thank you so much for watching.